Welcome back to JForrest English. I'm Jennifer, and today I have a 1-hour advanced English lesson for you to help you improve your fluency in English. First, we're going to read an article together, and you're going to learn advanced vocabulary, advanced grammar, and improve your pronunciation. Let's get started. Our headline: The Electric Car Revolution. Is it realistic or optimistic? First, let's talk about revolution, the electric car revolution. In this context, a revolution represents a very important change in the way people do things. You're probably familiar with the tech revolution, the technology revolution, which very much changed the way people do things. So the electric car revolution, a change from gas-powered vehicles to electric vehicles. Is it realistic? Realistic meaning that it is likely to happen. So I'll write that, likely to happen. Or optimistic. Generally, optimistic is considered a positive, but in this case, it's more of a negative because they're saying, oh, is it optimistic? Meaning it's overly hopeful. To be honest, I feel like they should have said, is it realistic or overly optimistic or too optimistic? Because when you add too in front of a word, it can make a positive word negative. But in this case, without the overly or too, to me, the word optimistic sounds positive, but I know based on the context that they actually want it to be negative. Too optimistic, which means it's too hopeful, overly hopeful. For example, you could say it's overly optimistic to think we'll live on Mars in 10 years. So it's saying that this is too hopeful. It's not likely. It's not realistic. So what do you think? Do you think the electric car revolution, the change from gas-powered vehicles to electric vehicles, is that realistic or optimistic? Overly optimistic, too optimistic? Put your answer in the comments. Put realistic or overly too optimistic. I'd be interested to know what you think. Let's continue. Governments and motor manufacturers. A manufacturer is a company that makes whatever it is. So in this case, it's motor manufacturers. Manufacturers. So notice we have this awkward double R because here I have manufacture. For example, you can use this as a verb. GM manufactures fridges. So notice this R, manufactures. But I could also say GM is a manufacturer. That's a tricky pronunciation, manufacturer. If you want to avoid this, you can always say GM manufactures fridges to avoid that. Governments and motor manufacturers around the world are throwing money and resources into the development of electric vehicles. Notice the pronunciation, vehicle. Of course, a vehicle is a term that includes different types of machines with motors. For example, cars, vans, trucks, SUVs. They are vehicles. Now, when they say governments are throwing money and resources, it means they're spending it very freely. Spending freely. So it implies they're spending a lot of money. Now, we do have one expression that is more of a negative that uses this. Don't throw your money away. Don't throw your money away. This is used to say don't spend your money so freely that you don't have any left. And we definitely include a specific time that you would do this. Don't throw your money away at the casino, because when you go to a casino, what do people do? They throw money at the slot machines, or they throw money at the poker table, which means they spend their money freely. But if someone gives you advice and says, don't throw your money away, they're advising you not to spend your money so freely. So governments are throwing money and resources into the development of electric vehicles, but can electric power really replace the internal combustion engine? The internal combustion engine is just the type of engine that's used on gas-powered vehicles. You don't really need to use this. You can just refer to it as a vehicle. Before the middle of the century, maybe it can, but this is by no means certain. So again, if you didn't answer before, what do you think? Can electric vehicles replace gas-powered vehicles? Can electric vehicles replace the internal combustion engine, which is found on all gas-powered vehicles? You can put realistic or optimistic in the comments. And I have made all the notes available in a free lesson PDF, so you can look in the description for the link to download this free lesson PDF. Let's continue on. Electric vehicles have arrived. Notice the use of the present perfect. This is because it's a past action. Electric vehicles are currently on the market. So they're not arriving in a future context. They have arrived. It's a past action, but there's a connection to the present. That connection is now you can buy an electric vehicle. You can replace your gas-powered vehicle, your internal combustion engine vehicle, with an electric vehicle. Is that a change that you're going to do? Are you going to replace one for the other? So have arrived. This is the present perfect. And it's a past action with a present consequence. With technology led by Tesla and all of the world's major car manufacturers, remember that another chance to practice. I'll read that again. And all of the world's major car manufacturers following along behind. When you follow along behind, it means one car manufacturer makes the change, and then the other car manufacturers start making that same change. So follow along behind. We also have a common expression with other manufacturers following suit. And it means the same thing. I do this, so then my friend does it as well. She follows suit. Electric vehicles are now a common sight on the roads of most developed countries. So what about in your country? Do you see a lot of electric vehicles? In Canada, I see more and more electric vehicles. I remember 5 years ago, it was very rare to see a Tesla. Now, I would say 1 out of 10 cars are electric vehicles. That's just a complete guess. I do not know if that's accurate, but that's just based on when I'm driving. There's one. It's very common. Almost every parking lot now has electric charging stations for electric cars to charge. So what about in your country? What's the situation? Share that in the comments as well. Yet, the situation in less developed countries is rather different. Let's talk about this use of yet. Yet. This is a conjunction, and it's used to show a contrast. The contrast is, in developed countries, electric cars are very common. In less developed countries, they're not very common. So we have a contrasting situation. I can combine those ideas with the word yet. It's similar to however or but. However, the situation in less developed countries, but the situation in less developed countries. However, sounds quite formal, but sounds less formal, and then yet sounds both formal and informal. It's more in the middle, I would say. Yet, the situation in less developed countries is rather different. Rather is used as an adverb to show that it's more different. So we have in less developed countries, the situation is different. It's rather different. So I'm increasing the amount of difference between them. So I could say, I'm tired. Or I could say, I'm rather tired. When I add rather, it increases the amount that I am tired. It sounds stronger. The only African country to have started the change to electric vehicles is South Africa. And even there, electric vehicles still account for less than 0.01% of the total number of cars on the roads. Notice how I said this number, 0.01%. Now, when something accounts for something, it means it makes up that amount. For example, Spanish speakers, people who speak Spanish speakers account for 50% of my audience. I have no idea if this is true. Said another way, 50% of my audience is Spanish speakers. I use the verb is because audience is a collective noun and is conjugated as singular. So notice the sentence structure. You have something and then you have to account for. Account is a verb. So if it's a past, maybe last year, Spanish speakers accounted for 50% of my audience. So this is a verb. You conjugate it. Accounted for, then you have a number, 50%, 10%, 25%, and then of, and then whatever the total is. In South America, this situation is better, with all Latin American countries beginning to move towards electric vehicles, particularly Colombia, which in 2020 had a third of the continent's total electric car fleet. Now, if you're from South America, you probably realize that the author of this article spelled Colombia wrong. This is a common mistake that Americans make because we have a lot of places and companies with the spelling U, Colombia, but it's pronounced the exact same way. I did not write this article. This was not my mistake. I've been to Colombia. I know how to spell it. Colombia is with an O, but the pronunciation is exactly the same. But unfortunately for people who live in Colombia, this is a mistake that native speakers make quite frequently. Particularly Colombia. Notice particularly. So we're highlighting Colombia. Here's a car example. I love all luxury car manufacturers. I included this just so you can practice that pronunciation. I love all luxury car manufacturers, particularly Audi. So I'm highlighting Audi. I'm giving more attention to Audi, even though all the luxury car manufacturers are represented. So all South American countries are represented, but Colombia with an O is highlighted because they said particularly Colombia, which in 2020 had a third of the continent's total electric car fleet. Let's take a look at fleet. This is a noun and it's specifically used with vehicles. Our company has a fleet of 200 luxury vehicles. A fleet simply represents the total number of vehicles controlled by a company. Now, it could also be controlled by the organization. The Army has a fleet of tanks, a fleet of planes, as well. So it's the total number of tanks or planes that the army or government controls. Let's continue on. In Russia, the wealthy are investing in imported electric vehicles. So you invest in something. You could say, and hopefully you will if you agree with me, it's a wise decision to invest in improving your English skills. You're investing in improving your English skills right now. You're investing your time, your attention. It's a wise decision to invest in. Notice my preposition in, invest in. Now, you invest in something. You can say invest in your English skills, but you can also invest in doing something. So in this case, you need a verb. And that verb needs to be an ing verb. Invest in improving your English skills. In Russia, the wealthy are investing in importing electric cars, but no electric cars are yet manufactured locally. So here we have the ED, so let's focus on the pronunciation. I have my R, manufactured, and then I add a soft D, manufactured. Are yet manufactured locally. In this case, yet does not represent a contrast. It doesn't represent however or but like we saw before. In this case, yet represents until now, and we frequently use yet with the negative. And we commonly use this with the present perfect. I haven't bought an electric vehicle yet. So this means until now, but it's in the present perfect because it's possible for me to buy an electric vehicle. So I could add, I haven't bought an electric vehicle yet, but I plan on buying one next year. So notice I use but to add that contrast. I haven't, I'm buying one. I haven't bought one, I'm buying one. So there's a contrast, and I combine those two sentences together with the conjunction yet. And remember, in this case, yet does not mean but. It means until now. While in India, the government is promoting the purchase of electric vehicles with tax exemptions. When you're exempt from something, the verb exempt, it means you are not subject to it. You don't have to do it. So if there is a policy that everyone needs to buy a certain shirt for work, a black shirt for work, but you're exempt from that policy. So all of your coworkers need to buy a black shirt, but you can wear a purple shirt or a white shirt because you're exempt. Now, if you have a tax exemption, it means you don't have to pay certain taxes and other incentive. An incentive is something financial or some other benefit to try to encourage you to do something. That would be an incentive. So maybe the incentive is that you get a rebate back. A rebate is money back. So if you paid $30,000 for the car, maybe you get $5,000 back. So that would be an incentive, a rebate. So that's money back after a purchase. Let's continue. So electric cars have arrived, remember, are present perfect, and their share of the market is increasing almost worldwide. So again, in your country, have you seen the share of electric vehicles in the market increase over the years? Does this mean, therefore, that the world is on track to phase out the use of gas-driven vehicles in less than 30 years? If you're on track or on track to do something, it means you're progressing towards your goal at the expected rate. So let's say your goal is to buy an electric vehicle by 2025. So to do that, you need to save money. Okay, so every month you save $1,000. This is your goal. And 1 year later, 2 years later, after starting this goal, you can say, I'm on track to achieve my goal, or I'm on track to buy the electric vehicle by 2020, or you can simply say, I'm on track. I'm on track. So if someone asks you, oh, how's your progress? Are you getting closer to that electric vehicle? You can say, yep, I'm on track. I'm on track. You're progressing towards your goal at the expected rate. So does that mean, therefore, that the world is on track to phase out the use of gas-driven vehicles in less than 30 years? So this is the goal, to phase out gas-driven vehicles, the internal combustion engine, in less than 30 years. So what does phase out mean? Phase out is a phrasal verb that means to gradually reduce something until it is no longer used. So of course, we're not going to go from driving gas-powered vehicles today and tomorrow not driving gas-powered vehicles. That's not realistic, obviously. So what are we going to do? Every year, we can increase the number of electric vehicles on the market and decrease the number of gas-powered vehicles. So right now, gas-powered, electric, but soon is going to change, right? And eventually, gas-powered vehicles are not going to exist because they have been so gradually reduced until they're no longer used. That's to phase out. So do you think it's realistic to phase out the use of gas-driven vehicles in 30 years? So 30 years from today, gas-powered vehicles don't exist. Do you think that's possible? You can share that in the comments as well. Now that's the goal. So are they on track to achieve this goal? I don't know. And does it mean that electric vehicles are the sustainable solution to our transport needs for the second half of the century? Unfortunately, I'm using this word as an adverb to deliver disappointing news because this sounds really positive, especially given the cost of gas. Every day, the cost of gas is going up, and the environmental damage caused by gas-powered vehicles. It seems very positive that we're phasing out gas-powered vehicles and phasing in electric vehicles. But this article uses, unfortunately, to deliver disappointing news because people want this to happen. Well, some people. Unfortunately, to the disappointment of some people, notice how I changed some people, because if you just say people want this to happen, it sounds like everybody wants this to happen. But I'm sure there are some people who want to continue driving gas-powered vehicles. Some people who don't want to use electric vehicles, right? So that's why we have to use some people. Otherwise, it sounds like all people. The answer to both of these questions has to be no. And that's the end of the article. So we don't know why the answer is no. But remember, both of these questions. So what are the questions? The first question is, are we on track to phase out the use of gas-driven vehicles? And
Are electric vehicles the sustainable solution to our transport needs? Those are the two questions. Very interesting discussion questions, so you're more than welcome to share your thoughts in the comment section.
Now we're going to use that same article, and this time we're going to focus only on your pronunciation. So I'm going to read the article in full from start to finish. We only reviewed 3 pages of the article in the last section, but there are 6 pages in this article. So I'll read it from start to finish. You can focus on my pronunciation. After I read it, I'm going to focus on each individual sentence and explain the more difficult to pronounce words. And when I do this, it's your turn to read the sentence out loud and imitate my pronunciation. So let's get started.
The electric car revolution. Is it realistic or optimistic? Governments and motor manufacturers around the world are throwing money and resources into the development of electric vehicles. But can electric power really replace the internal combustion engine before the middle of the century? Maybe it can, but this is by no means certain. Electric vehicles have arrived. With technology led by Tesla and all of the world's major car manufacturers following along behind, electric vehicles are now a common sight on the roads of most developed countries. Yet the situation in less developed countries is rather different. The only African country to have started the change to electric vehicles is South Africa, and even there, electric vehicles still account for less than 0.01% of the total number of cars on the roads. In South America, the situation is better, with all Latin American countries beginning the move towards electric vehicles, particularly Colombia, which in 2020 had a third of the continent's total electric car fleet. In Russia, the wealthy are investing in imported electric cars, but no electric cars are yet manufactured locally. While in India, the government is promoting the purchase of electric vehicles with tax exemptions and other incentives. So electric cars have arrived, and their share of the market is increasing almost worldwide. Does this mean, therefore, that the world is on track to phase out the use of gas-driven vehicles in less than 30 years? And does it mean that electric vehicles are the sustainable solution to our transport needs for the second half of the century? Unfortunately, to the disappointment of some people, the answer to both of these questions has to be no. The massive development of electric vehicles can only be possible if 2 conditions are met. Firstly, the expansion of electric vehicle manufacturing is dependent on the fragile ability of manufacturers to source vastly increased quantities of vital components and elements without which electric vehicles cannot operate. Secondly, few countries currently have electricity grids that are anywhere near being able to cope with the huge increase in demand for electricity that will accompany any rapid growth in electric vehicle ownership. Without adequate supplies of all the vital ingredients of electric motors and batteries, or without power supplies that are able to provide the electricity needed to recharge millions of electric batteries every day, as well as supplying the current we need for everything else, such as lighting, heating, trains, and electric devices, the electric car revolution will run up against insoluble problems. Governments and vehicle manufacturers are fully aware of these issues. But the consensus among policymakers seems to be that somehow technology will come up with the answers, as it often has in the past. Analysts also predict that changing social attitudes and environmental awareness will lead to a reduction in private vehicle use and a fall in the numbers of vehicles on the roads. This prediction is likely to be right, though not necessarily for those reasons alone. Any shortage of essential components will force up the cost of electric vehicles, and any shortage of battery recharging facilities or capacity will discourage people from buying electric vehicles, leading to a fall in the number of vehicles on the roads. Ultimately, the success of the transition to electric-powered vehicles will depend on advances in technology in three fields: the weight of batteries, the amount of power that they can produce, and the speed at which they can be recharged or exchanged.
Now I'll read each sentence from the article, and I'm also going to highlight the more difficult words. So I'll read the sentence in full once, then I'll focus on some specific words. When you see me do this, put my hand up, that means that it's your turn to read the highlighted sentence out loud. If you're in a private room, read out loud because it will really help with your pronunciation. So remember, first I'll read, and when I go like this, it's your turn to read it out loud. Let's get started.
The electric car revolution. Is it realistic or optimistic? Optimistic. Optimistic. The electric. The electric. The electric car revolution. Is it realistic or optimistic? Governments and motor manufacturers around the world are throwing money and resources into the development of electric vehicles. Manufacturers, manufacturers, manufacturers. Vehicles, vehicles, vehicles. Governments and motor manufacturers around the world are throwing money and resources into the development of electric vehicles. But can electric power really replace the internal combustion engine before the middle of the century? Combustion, combustion, combustion. Internal combustion engine. But can electric power really replace the internal combustion engine before the middle of the century? Maybe it can, but this is by no means certain. Certain, 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 certain. Maybe it can, but this is by no means certain. Electric vehicles have arrived. With technology led by Tesla and all of the world's major car manufacturers following along behind, electric vehicles are now a common sight on the roads of most developed countries. Developed, 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 developed. Electric vehicles are now a common sight on the roads of most developed countries. Yet the situation in less developed countries is rather different. The only African country to have started the change to electric vehicles is South Africa. And even there, electric vehicles still account for less than 0.01% of the total number of cars on the roads. In South America, this situation is better, with all Latin American countries beginning the move towards electric vehicles. Particularly Colombia, which in 2020 had a third of the continent's total electric car fleet. Particularly Colombia, which in 2020 had a third of the continent's total electric car fleet. In Russia, the wealthy are investing in imported electric cars. Investing in imported. Investing in imported. Investing in imported. In Russia, the wealthy are investing in imported electric cars. But no electric cars are yet manufactured locally. Manufactured. 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 But no electric cars are yet manufactured locally. While in India, the government is promoting the purchase of electric vehicles with tax exemptions and other incentives. Exemptions. 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 Incentives. 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 While in India, the government is promoting the purchase of electric vehicles with tax exemptions and other incentives. So electric cars have arrived, and their share of the market is increasing almost worldwide. Does this mean, therefore, that the world is on track to phase out the use of gas-driven vehicles in less than 30 years? On track to phase out. On track to phase out. On track to phase out. Does this mean, therefore, that the world is on track to phase out the use of gas-driven vehicles in less than 30 years? And does it mean that electric vehicles are the sustainable solution to our transport needs for the second half of the century? Sustainable. Sustainable. Sustainable solution. Sustainable solution. And does it mean that electric vehicles are the sustainable solution to our transport needs for the second half of the century? Unfortunately, to the disappointment of some people, the answer to both of these questions has to be no. The massive development of electric vehicles can only be possible if two conditions are met. Development. 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 The massive development of electric vehicles can only be possible if two conditions are met. Firstly, the expansion of electric vehicle manufacturing is dependent on the fragile ability of manufacturers manufacturers Firstly, the expansion of electric vehicle manufacturing is dependent on the fragile ability of manufacturers to source vastly increased quantities of vital components and elements without which electric vehicles cannot operate. Vital, vital, vital. To source vastly increased quantities of vital components and elements without which electric vehicles cannot operate. Secondly, few countries currently have electricity grids. Electricity grids. Electricity grids. Secondly, few countries currently have electricity grids. That are anywhere near being able to cope with the huge increase in demand for electricity. That will accompany any rapid growth in electric vehicle ownership. Accompany, accompany, accompany. That will accompany any rapid growth in electric vehicle ownership. Without adequate supplies of all the vital ingredients of electric motors and batteries, adequate, quit, quit, adequate, adequate. Without adequate supplies of all the vital ingredients of electric motors and batteries. Or without power supplies that are able to provide the electricity needed to recharge millions of electric batteries every day. Recharge. Recharge. Or without power supplies that are able to provide the electricity needed to recharge millions of electric batteries every day. As well as supplying the current we need for everything else, such as lighting, heating, trains, and electric devices. The electric car revolution will run up against insoluble problems. Insoluble, insoluble, insoluble. The electric car revolution will run up against insoluble problems. Governments and vehicle manufacturers are fully aware of these issues. But the consensus among policymakers seems to be that somehow technology will come up with the answers. Consensus. 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 But the consensus among policymakers seems to be that somehow technology will come up with the answers. As it often has in the past. Often. Often. As it often has in the past. Analysts also predict that changing social attitudes and environmental awareness will lead to a reduction in private vehicle use. and a fall in the numbers of vehicles on the roads. This prediction is likely to be right. Prediction, diction, prediction. This prediction is likely to be right. Though not necessarily for those reasons alone. Any shortage of essential components will force up the cost of electric vehicles. And any shortage of battery recharging facilities or capacity will discourage people from buying electric vehicles. Leading to a fall in the number of vehicles on the roads. Ultimately, the success of the transition to electric-powered vehicles will depend on advances in technology in three fields. Powered, powered, powered. Ultimately, the success of the transition to electric-powered vehicles will depend on advances in technology in three fields. The weight of batteries, the amount of power that they can produce, and the speed at which they can be recharged or exchanged.
Now let's move on and talk about your listening skills. Do you struggle to understand native English speakers? Maybe you understand me right now, but then you struggle to understand TV shows, movies, or your coworkers. Well, don't worry, because let's talk about that. I'm going to explain why you have difficulty understanding native speakers so you know what you need to do to improve. Let's get started. What do you mean she can't make it? Did you hear what I just said? What do you mean she can't make it? I said, what do you mean she can't make it? But of course, I didn't say it like that. I said, what do you mean she can't make it? Notice how I said, what do you? What do ya? What do ya? What do you mean? What do you mean? This is called connected speech, and native speakers love connecting their speech. But of course, this makes it difficult for you to understand us. So let me share the most common connected phrases that you need to know. The first one, of course, what do ya? What do ya? What do you mean? What are you doing? What do you want? How do you know she can't make it? Did you catch this one? How do you? How do ya? How do ya? How do you know? What you doing this weekend? Did you get this one? What are you becomes what ya? What ya? What ya? What you doing this weekend? So make it your goal to learn these connected phrases, but for now, focus on the top three you need to know. What do ya? How do ya? And what ya? How about this one? How are you going to get to the mall? How are ya? That's a connected phrase. How are you? How are ya? How are ya? Gonna. Now this is a reduction. We take two words, going to, and we reduce it into one, gonna. These are informal. They're very casual, but they're frequently used in spoken English. I gotta go. I'm sure you know this one. Got to sounds like gotta. I gotta go. Give me a break. Gimme, gimme, give me a break. Give me sounds like gimme. I don't know. I don't know. Don't know as a reduction. I don't know. I want to go to the movies. Want to becomes wanna. Start with these and pay attention and keep adding more reductions to your speech. We'll be there at 5. We'll be there at 5. We will be there at 5. Will be there. Will. This is a contraction. We take two separate words and we form one word. The thing you need to know about contractions is that they are grammatically correct. You can use them in your spoken English and your writing, and although they do sound more casual, they are grammatically correct. I would never say it is a hot day. I would say it's a hot day. It's a hot day. I would not say she is my friend. I would say she's my friend. She's my friend. Now, because of this, students might not get the verb because it's in a contraction. You must learn contractions if you want to understand native speakers. Let's start with the most common. It is, it's. There is, theirs. I have, I've. You are, your. Should not, shouldn't. Will not, won't. Start with these and keep adding contractions to your speech. It will help you understand native speakers. Let's try that listening exercise from the beginning again. What do you mean you can't make it? What do you mean you can't make it? I'm sure you already understand this a lot more because you now understand the connected speech. But did you also know I said make it, make it? Now, if you looked at each individual sound, it sounds like May, kit. So you might be thinking May, the month of May, April, May, and kit, like a Kit Kat bar? I don't understand. This is linking. Linking is when we take a sound from one word and we put that sound on the next word. We do this in English to help us connect our speech and smooth our pronunciation so we can speak without pauses. Make it. Notice there's that k on make, but it forces me to take a pause. Make it. So to get rid of that pause, I take that k and I put it on the next word. Make it. Make it. Let's try another listening exercise. You shouldn't walk alone at night. Now, I used a contraction. Should not becomes shouldn't. You shouldn't. And then I said walk alone. But again, there's that k sound. So I take that K sound and I put it on the next word and it becomes cologne. But cologne sounds a lot like men's perfume, which we call cologne. For women, it's perfume, but for men, it's cologne. So this can cause confusion because you might think I just said cologne, meaning men's perfume. But this is part of walk alone. Walk alone. Walk alone with linking. The best way to get comfortable with linking is to study native speakers. So instead of listening to an entire 30-minute episode, just listen to one sentence on YouTube or on TV and pause and listen to that sentence many, many times and really get comfortable with how those sounds are pronounced together. And really get comfortable with how those sounds are pronounced at a natural pace. Let's try a listening exercise. I got a lot of merch. I got a lot of merch. I got a lot of merch. Here I used a reduction. A lot of is pronounced a lotta, a lotta. Now what is merch? Maybe you understood the sound, you understood I said merch, but you have no idea what that means. That's because native speakers, we shorten words all the time for no reason. This is very casual and informal, but it's done in both a professional and social context. So merch is short for merchandise. If you work in a company that buys and sells products, most likely your coworkers will say merch, and you might not understand what they mean. That's a fab dress. Fab is short for fabulous. I have to take my cat to the vet. Vet is short for veterinarian. Are we meeting at HQ? HQ is an acronym for headquarters, which is the head office, the main office of a company. But pretty much everyone calls it HQ. So when you're studying native speakers, listen for these shortened words and just make a list of them and keep adding the most common ones to your speech. Let's try another listening exercise. You gotta cut it out. You gotta cut it out. I used a reduction, got to, gotta, you gotta. Cut it out, cut it out, cut it out. Now maybe you heard the what and you're thinking, what does Jennifer have to cut out? Does she have to cut something out? But no, because this is an idiom. So to understand native speakers, you have to learn phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions because we use them all the time. Take a look at this article from Forbes magazine. Now, everything I have underlined is either a phrasal verb, an idiom, or an expression. And they don't have literal meanings. So maybe you understood the word cut, but that doesn't help you understand my message because it doesn't have a literal meaning. Now, there are hundreds and hundreds of phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions, but don't worry because I have many video tutorials on my channel already. So make it your goal to add one a day, one phrasal verb, idiom, or expression a day, and that will be 365 in 1 year. And by expanding your vocabulary with these phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions, it will really help you understand native speakers. So now you know exactly what you need to do to understand native speakers. So which are you going to focus on first? Which do you have the most difficult time with? And if it's number 6, phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions, I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers on TV, movies, and YouTube so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary, learn advanced grammar, learn correct pronunciation, all at the same time. So you can look for the link in the description for more information on how to join. So now you have all the information on how to improve your listening skills, so let's practice. Let's test your listening skills. Here are your instructions for the entire lesson. I'm going to say a sentence, and I'm going to say it at a fast pace, the way I would speak to my friends or colleagues. I'm going to use phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions, and I'm going to use natural pronunciation. And you're going to test your listening skills. I will say each sentence 3 times. Write down exactly what you hear in the comment section, and then after, I'll explain exactly what I said, the expression I use, and the natural pronunciation changes. Okay, our first listening test. Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Did you get that one? I said, did you break it to him? First, let's talk about the pronunciation changes. Did you, we pronounce this as didja, didja, didja. So I combine those sounds together and I take you and I change it to ya, didja, didja. Did you break it, Tim? Notice the last 2 words really sounded like one word. Tim, Tim. It almost sounded like Tim, the name Tim. And that's because we frequently get rid of the H on him and her at a natural pace and we connect it to the word before. So it really sounds like im, and then you hear the t from to. Tim, Tim. Did you break it, Tim? Now, what does this mean? To break something to someone is an expression, and we use this when you share news or information with someone, but it's always negative. So maybe you applied for a promotion, but you're not going to get the promotion. So that's the negative news. Did you break it to him that he's not getting the promotion? So did you share this negative news with him? Did you break it to him? Our next listening test, remember to put what you hear in the comments. Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Did you get that one? I said, cut it out, would you? First, let's talk about pronunciation. Did ya? The same thing is happening here with would you. You becomes ya, and I combine those sounds. Would ya, ja, ja, would ya, would ya, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Now let's talk about cut it out. You'll notice we have T's in between vowels. In American English, when a T comes between vowels, we change that to a d, a very soft D. Cut it out, cut it out. And I pronounce all three as one. Cut it out, cut it out, cut it out. Cut it out, would ya? The expression to cut something out means to stop something that is annoying or frustrating or irritating or unwanted. So let's say you're in a meeting for work and in the background your kids are going crazy. They're screaming, they're yelling, they're fighting. This is behavior that is unwanted, frustrating, irritating, annoying, and you want them to stop. So you can say to your kids, cut it out, would ya? Our next listening exercise, write what you hear in the comments. You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. Did you get that one? I said you gotta kick it up a notch. First, notice how I used gotta. This is a reduction. It's a combination of the words got, to, and it's pronounced as one. Gotta, you gotta. You can also say you've gotta, you have got to, but in American English, it's very common to just say you gotta, you gotta. You got to is the same as you have to. Now let's talk about the expression to kick something up a notch. When you kick something up a notch, it's just encouraging you to perform better, work faster, work harder. So let's say you were tasked with assembling 100 boxes. And 2 hours have passed and your boss sees that you've only assembled 20 boxes. And your boss wants to tell you that you need to work harder, you need to work faster, you need to perform better. She can say, you gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta work faster, you gotta work harder. Our next listening exercise, write what you hear in the comments. I'll say it 3 times. Don't let him get to you. Don't let him get to you. Don't let him get to you. How'd you do with that one? I said, don't let him get to you. First, let's talk about pronunciation. Don't let him, let him. Notice again, I take that H off of him, I drop the sound, and then I'm left with im, but I combine it with the word before. Let him, let him, let him. Don't let him. Don't let him get to you. Now, I said you at the end. Many native speakers will drop this to ya. Don't let him get to ya, get to ya. Just like we saw with did ya, would ya. But I said you. Don't let him get to you. Now, what does this mean? When someone gets to you, it means that you become angry, annoyed, irritated, or frustrated because of that person's behavior. But we can also use this in situations. If you get really angry when you're stuck in traffic, I can say, don't let the traffic get to you. So don't let the situation make you angry, because what does being angry do? It doesn't benefit the situation in any way. Don't let the traffic get to you. Don't let your boss's criticism get to you. Don't let it anger you, frustrate you, or annoy you. Our next listening exercise, I'll say it 3 times. Write what you hear in the comments. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Did you get that one? What are you looking at? So here we have a very simple sentence, but it might be difficult for you because of those natural pronunciation changes, how I combine my words at a natural pace. What are you sounds like one word. What are ya? What are ya? So the R just becomes and I attach it to what? What are you? Now, I think I said you, but you can also again shorten that to ya, and native speakers commonly do that. So get comfortable with it. What are you? What are ya? What are you? What are ya? But remember, it sounds like one word. What are you? What are you looking at? Here, it's very common to take a word that ends in ing and drop the G sound, that G sound, and just end it on looking at. But notice I combine it with the word that comes next because it's a vowel, looking at. So instead of looking at, it sounds like nat, and then I combine them. Looking at, nat, looking at. What are you looking at? So how did you do with those listening exercises? Share your score in the comments below, and remember, you are being tested on your ability to understand the words I say, but also the ability to understand what my meaning is. So maybe you understood the words, but you didn't know the expression or the idiom. You didn't know what it meant. So you need both. But don't worry if this was difficult, because the more you practice, the more you study native speakers, the more you add these expressions to your vocabulary, the easier it will become. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say each sentence again, and I want you to imitate me and try to say it as closely to the way I pronounce it. And if you're in a private space, I want you to say it out loud. If you're in a public space, well then try this again when you're at home and you can say it out loud. Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. Don't let him get to you. Don't let him get to you. Don't let him get to you. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Now practice this again and again until you feel very confident that your pronunciation is close to mine. And make sure you get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can download it from my website right here, and you can get started with your next lesson right now.